Hi there. Today I'd like to do a music theory video. It's actually a music definition and it comes from the New Grove Dictionary of Music and Musicians. I've done a few of these before. I'm still in volume 1. I'm just going down the alphabet letters there. And today's definition is found on page 213 and it's Alberti Bass. Alberti Bass. Since it's not a very long definition in here, I'll just read the whole thing for you. Alberti Bass is a left-hand accompaniment figure in keyboard music consisting of broken triads whose notes are played in the order lowest, highest, middle, highest. And taking its name from Alberti, who lived from 1710 until 1740. Recent research suggests that, obvious as this little figure may seem, Alberti was in fact the first to make frequent use of it. The term ought to be restricted to figures of the shape described and not extended loosely to other types of broken chord accompaniment. So Alberti was an Italian composer who lived at the latter end of the Baroque period, and he was a singer, a harpsichordist, and a composer. And he wasn't the first musician to ever use this type of left-hand keyboard accompaniment, but he was the first who used it a lot in his music. So historians ended up naming it after him. Hence, we have the term Alberti Bass. The pattern that's described here, to talk about the word triad. Now, a triad, if you don't know what it is, if you take a major scale, in my case, a C major scale, and if you take the first degree of that scale, C, and the third degree, E, and the fifth, which is a G, and you play those three notes broken or blocked, that's a triad. So you have a broken triad and a blocked triad. It's a C triad. So the definition here says that the order in which you play the Alberti Bass accompaniment is you take a triad and you play the bottom note, the top note, middle, and the top again. So if you repeat that over a few times, you have something like this. Okay, so that's a basic definition of what Alberti Bass is. Now, like the definition says here, this is mostly used in keyboard music, but not only in keyboard music. Since I have the guitar in hand here, one very well-known classical guitar study by Fernando Sor uses it throughout. Let me just play you a few measures of it. I can link a recording of this whole study. It's not very long, it's just a page long. I can link it below if you want to see me play the whole thing. I played that a few weeks ago. So that's a great example for guitar repertoire. If you listen to the bottom, and by the way, the score looks like this. So those are just the first few measures I played. Now if you listen to just the bass notes, and then back to this, and then the melody on top, and when you put that together, okay, so that's an example of an Alberti Bass figure for guitar music. Now, if I go downstairs to my piano, I can show you a great example, probably the most well-known example from keyboard music for Alberti Bass is this sonata by Mozart. So let me play a little bit of that for you. Here are the two hands together. Here's the left hand alone. right hand alone. Here are the hands together again. And here's what that score looks like for the first few measures that I just played. So that's probably an example that most musicians would be more familiar with because it's keyboard music and it's Mozart. I would simply add that on the guitar as an instrument, it's usually more difficult to play Alberti Bass figures, Alberti Bass accompaniments, simply because everything happens in the right hand. I mean, here I have a blocked chord, it's a C chord, and everything happens in the right hand. I have, and it takes quite a lot of practice and independence in your fingers, in your right hand fingers, to get that happening, because you have to hear the melody along with this. And not only do you have to get independence in your right hand fingers, but you also have to emphasize the moving melody and not overemphasize the bass notes, the Alberti bass notes. So you don't want to do that. You want to back it up a little bit. So you hear the melody, so something like this. Okay, so I would say that maybe I'm a little bit biased here because I am a guitarist first and foremost, but I would say that it's probably more difficult to play that sort of thing on the guitar than it is on the piano, because on the piano the hands you're separating the two. You're playing that in the left hand and the bass in the left hand and the tune in the right, and at least mentally it's a little bit easier to separate the two instruments, so to speak. On the guitar it's all happening together in the same hand, so to speak. So one way guitarists deal with that, they would take that first section and just play open strings, which is gonna sound a little bit weird, but here, taking the left hand off, simply to allow myself to focus on the different accents that I have to place on my right hand notes. Now this is a little bit unfair because all musicians are talking about Alberti Bass, and all of us are using music that's not by Alberti himself. So I think at some point I'd like to learn an Alberti sonata maybe for the keyboard. I think he wrote a few, and maybe even do a transcription for the guitar and play that, because that would be probably the best way to explain how Alberti Bass works. It's just that his music is not as famous as Mozart for the keyboard and Fernando Sor for the guitar. Before I close this video, I'd like to say that if you're a keyboard player, you'll have no problem finding plenty of examples of Alberti Bass accompaniment figures in the left hand. If you're a guitarist, I would suggest to look at the music of Sor, the music of Giuliani especially, anything from the late classical, early romantic period, and you will find some examples for sure. Well, thank you for watching my music theory video on Alberti Bass. If you have any questions or comments, or even some suggestions for some possible topics in the future for my music theory videos, please leave a comment below and I'll take a look. Thank you and see you next time.